I'm the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Business Competition, so I'm thrilled that you're here today. This is also being live streamed, just so you're aware, and it is being recorded. So if you have to leave early or whatever, if you've signed up, we have your email, so you'll be getting an email with the recording. I have brochures in the back. I have laptop stickers. So if you want one of those, you're more than welcome to have those. Also, for Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses, for maybe a business that's been in existence for a few years, there's some criteria, but they're trying to fill their next cohort. And so that is back there as well. Okay. So I want to welcome you to our first event of the year. We kind of work on a school year calendar. We're very excited to have Peter here. Actually, this is the 4th time Peter has spoken for us. He's very popular and does a great job. We also are thrilled that we're part of Rhode Island Startup Week, hosted by 𝐌𝐎𝐑𝐑𝐍, and that Tanti actually sits on our advisory board. For those of you who are not aware, we're one of the longest community-run organizations. We've been around since 2000, and our mission is really to help entrepreneurs in a variety of different ways. So we run various workshops. In November, on the 16th, we have our pitch contest, which is open to anyone. It is free. I would suggest if you're interested in pitching, go on and sign up for it. It will be up, it's up on the website now, which is ri-business.com. But even if you're not ready to pitch, I would strongly suggest you come. It's downstairs. We usually have over 125 people that come, and it's a range of people from investors to students to corporations. It's our sponsors. It's a mix of people. It's a fun night. Our competition, though, our application opens up in January. It closes at the end of March. It is a lengthy application. I will forewarn you if you're thinking of entering the competition. You can start it, so it's not like you have to do all in one shot. And we offer about $150,000 in cash and prizes to our winner and finalists. The last 2 years, we've had 3 finalists and 1 winner. Years past, we've had 1 winner and 2 finalists. It just depends on the year. But we've had some really amazing businesses. The other thing I will strongly suggest to you is in the end of April, we have our award ceremony. So even if you haven't applied to the competition, again, it's a great networking night, have lots of people. So I hope you all will join us for that. But to do all this, needless to say, we have to be supported by our sponsors. And this includes private companies, service organizations, public organizations, colleges, universities, banks, investors, and most importantly, actually former competitors. If it wasn't for them, we would not be able to function every year, and this is what's made us quite the success. I also want to acknowledge one of our other partners, which is Venture Cafe. They've been awesome at producing today's event, and they produce all of our events. They also put out the Eventbrite link. And I also want to mention Bryant University's digital marketing team. They're not here right now, but I think they're online. And they put it all of our marketing on all our social media platforms, which includes LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So you can definitely get on our handles. If you grab a brochure, all our handles are listed. I hope you would sign up for those. So as I said, I'm very excited to have Peter back. It's very relevant for entrepreneurs and anyone else to be able to give an effective pitch. And you never know when you're going to have to give a pitch. I'm an entrepreneur too, so I understand this. So when investors are asking for a great pitch, you consistently hear the same answers. What's your problem or need? How are you going to produce your product or service to solve that problem, right? You might think it's a great product, but if there's no need for that product, that's a problem. The other thing is, what's your team look like? What do you think your revenue is going to be? What's your challenges and opportunities? And obviously your slide deck. So in January, we actually have a workshop coming up on how to create an investor deck. In the old days, we asked for a full business plan. If you got to the semifinalist level, now we ask for an investor deck. But it's good for all of you to have at least an investor deck if you don't have a full business plan. So these are all essentials. These are the nuts and bolts of a pitch. So I'm not going to say much more, but Peter has helped entrepreneurs, executives, and attorneys create and deliver a compelling message that resonates with their audiences. They develop superior public speaking skills. I've learned a lot from Peter. It helps with your self-confidence if you can give a good pitch and possess a competitive advantage. So I turn it over to Peter. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Give you $5 if you get rid of that slide.
Wait till Riley.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Good.
All right, I'm gonna make a deal with you if you'd like. If you have a question, don't raise your hand, just ask the question. Okay, just say it, and if it's something that we're speaking about and it's relevant at that moment, I'll happily answer for you. If it's something we're going to discuss a little further down the road, I'll ask you to write it down and ask then. If it's something I don't want to answer, I'll ask you to write it down and we'll never bring it up again. Good?
Sure.
There's nothing I don't want to answer. Sometimes there's something very particular to you that wouldn't be of interest to the rest of the room, and we can stand outside till tomorrow for all I care and discuss that. All right, what's the purpose of a pitch?
Good one.
Get money, ultimately, yeah,
Interest,
get interest,
persuade.
persuade,
Sell your idea to investors.
sell your ideas. These are all good. What else?
Make a connection.
Make a connection, inform them. Yeah, my thought is a pitch, whether it's a 90-second pitch, which I believe is going to be in the contest at a limit of 90 seconds or so, or a 5-minute or 10-minute pitch, is to answer the questions the judges and or investors would have. Not to have them necessarily have to ask questions. They'll have questions anyway, but if you can answer them, it helps them flow through what you're trying to get across to them more often. You're trying to get in the camera here as well. So that's what a pitch is. It's answering those questions for people. And hopefully ahead of time. But most of us, well, I shouldn't say most of us, many of us think of it as a data dump. That when we get someone's ear, whether formally in a pitch contest or in an elevator, that we are just gonna dump information on that. And I personally think that's a mistake because most people are reluctant for that. You get someone cornered in an elevator and you're just gonna dump information on, they will get off long before they're stopped. They'll hit the next floor and get off. So how do you say it in an interesting way? 90 seconds is extremely short to get all this across. It'll be very difficult to get a lot across, so you have to be concise and compelling in a very short time, and it's certainly doable. How do you do that? Anybody have an idea? All right, actually, before we get into that, we're not really going to talk about slides today, except for this. When you create slides, within reason, your slides should be able to fit hand-drawn on here
For a 90-second pitch.
for anything. You could be sitting in front of the president of CVS. If you have, doesn't mean you can have more than one slide, but each slide, again, within reason, take this with a grain of salt, you should be able to hand draw on here. If you need another sticky, don't go out and get the 12-inch by 12-inch stickies and do it that way. This size, if you need another one, it's another slide. What we often try to do is jam too much onto these things, and people get confused of where they should look. And then make it simple. I'll give you an idea. I wouldn't talk about slides too much, but just a little bit. I worked with the CEO of an international company. And they were having a sort of impromptu meeting because they were for the quarter up 13% when the forecast was less than 3%. They excelled, and he wanted his people to know, he wanted to celebrate it. They had pizza, they had cake, they had this nice gathering. But he was going to talk first, 5 minutes at the outside. And he had this slide. He said, I'm just going to use one slide you'll be proud of. And then he said, let me see the slide. He brought up the slide. And it was basically a legend in Excel of revenue, costs, gross profit, net profit, and the like. And I said, what do you want them to look at? There's a ton of numbers. It's like 12 columns and 48 rows. What do you want them to look at? Well, down here is what brings us to the 13% year over year. Great, how do they know to look there? Well, I'm going to point it out with a laser. Why would you do that? And we're having fun with this. He goes, yeah, that's probably a good point. He said, so I'll blow that up a little bit. circle it, highlight it, whatever, great. You're talking over $1 billion, actually over $4 billion. Do we need the pennies? No, we don't need the pennies. Do we need to, come on in. Do we need the $10? No. So we got it down to the billion. What's the point of the whole slide? Well, we're up 13%. So what the slide came out to be was a big green arrow pointing up with 13% in the middle of it. Because that was the point of the slide. So when you do these, that's the easy way to work with these things. We just get convoluted slides, and that confuses people. Make it easy for them. Make it easy for you. You don't have to sit down and make these incredibly beautiful, incredibly confusing slides. Okay, so we are going to talk about today storytelling. Yes, in 90 seconds. Preparation. And then the one thing that you can get across anytime in 3 seconds or less. What's that? Name. Name. What else? So you've got 3 seconds. Scientists say. Good impression. Yeah. Good impression. Confidence. People want to know you're confident. Nervous speaking in front of them, fine. Doesn't make a difference. Should be nervous. You have feelings, you're going to be nervous. If you have adrenaline, you're going to be nervous. Show confidence. So we're going to talk about that last, but that is an incredibly important point. Studies show that if a 4-year-old walks into, or a kid walks into the 4th grade, in 3 seconds of meeting that teacher and looking around that classroom, they have decided what the next 180 days of schooling is going to be like. 3 seconds, which is why we have don't judge a book by its cover, don't have a knee-jerk reaction, because as human beings, as these animals we are, that's what we do. It's a safety thing. So you have to show them that you're confident. Who watches Shark Tank?
Sometimes.
Hi, sometimes, a few people do. You ever notice when they say, yeah, your numbers are skewed, you're not really making money, we would have to change your format, but I like you. I have confidence in you. Long before people will buy dollars, they'll buy confidence. They'll buy the relationship. So that's an important part. We'll work on that as well. So storytelling. What's the point of a story? Catch the attention from the beginning. What else?
Emotional connection.
Emotional connection, yep. All right.
Lesson.
It's a lesson. It's kind of what I was looking for. Stories have morals. Think of Aesop's fables, anything going back, Aristotle's stories, the like. They generally had, and some would actually say, the moral of the story is, in case you missed it, they want to get it across, and here's the moral of the story. But what it also provides is conflict. Stories have conflict. Anecdotes generally do not. They might, they generally do not. And that's the difference. A story will have a conflict, it'll have a moral. An anecdote is just a cute tale. Might have some meaning, can be worthwhile. So when you tell the story, start with the problem. What's the conflict? And you can do that very briefly. People think that takes a while. Anybody know what a log line is in the television and movie industry? Okay, do you, anybody with cable? You pull up the guide to see what's on tonight and it says whatever, and then gives you that one line about what that episode's about. That's the log line. And the reason log lines are so important, it's not for cable information of the like, although it certainly helps there. It's so when someone is trying to get a producer's ear, in one sentence, maybe two, they can say what this is about and see if that interests the producer. Because that might be the only time they get to meet that producer and pitch that, if you will. So I'm going to read a few log lines and you tell me what it's about. And the point here is, this is how quickly you can get your ideas across. A young man is transported to the past where he and a scientist must reunite his parents before he and his future cease to exist.
Back to the Future.
To the future. But that's how it was presented to the producers. And if they get interested, go tell me more. If it doesn't catch their interest, they're like, nice meeting you. The aging patriarch of an organized crime dynasty transfers control of his clandestine empire to his reluctant son. Have fun. A blacksmith teams up with an eccentric pirate captain to save his love, the governor's daughter, from the captain's former pirate allies who are now undead. Easy, right? A spirited farm boy. Most of us don't think of it that way. A spirited farm boy joins a rebellion to save a princess from a sinister imperial enforcer and the galaxy from a planet-destroying weapon. So, and then the last one. A cowboy doll is profoundly frightened and jealous when a spaceman action figure supplants him as the top toy in the boy's bedroom. Toy Story.
Could do this all day.
It's easy, isn't it? Yeah, you get 100. Yeah. What score did you get on the test? 100. So it is easy. And it's not only the point, though, that in one sentence, maybe two, you get your point across on what this is about. But if you noticed, everyone included the problem. Subtly sometimes, but the problem. Back to the Future, before he and his future cease to exist. Yes, timeline. The aging patriarch is reluctant son to save his love, the governor's daughter. They all include the problem. Save the galaxy, and then the doll being profoundly threatened and jealous when he's supplanted. So this is what you should have at any time, actually, as entrepreneurs. So you can, when someone says, hey, what are you working on? Boom. You don't have to go into, well, here's this, and here's this, and here's this, and here's this. You get their attention right away. Always start with the problem, even if it's in like these log lines in there where it's said, but it doesn't have to be right in your face. It can also be right in your face. There's nothing wrong with that. Always remember this, there's no such thing as a solution unless there's a problem. No one would have invented the Band-Aid if we didn't get cut. So if you have a solution, we have to know what the problem is. Might be obvious to you, might not be obvious to me. And I'll tell you what, a lot of things that are obvious to you are not obvious to specifically me, because I'm not in your field. When it comes to your field, I'm dumb as toast. Simple as that. So let us know right away what the problem is, and now you can get into, here's my team, here's how we're going to solve it, here's how we've tested that solution, whatever it might be. Here's the funding we have, profit we're making already, expected profit once we roll it out. All those things come after. But get our attention immediately and tell us the problem. We often just want to talk about how we're the solution. So do that for us. The other thing about a story is you can build in just about anything, not just the problem and the solution, but you can build in any part of it you want. We first started out this way, realized that was not going to work, pivoted this way, found a better solution for our own problems within, changed our team, changed our tactics, our strategy, and moved forward, and we're now getting this result. You can build anything into that story that you want. The problem is many of us say, I'm not good with stories. I don't tell stories. I don't surround myself with stories. And when anybody says that, I say, you're wrong. I don't know you, but you're wrong. We surround ourselves with stories all day long, and we tell stories. Anybody who comes home to a roommate, a significant other, family, whatever it might be, the dog, and someone says, how was your day? And you start answering that question, unless you're doing All right. You truthfully answer the question, I had this client I was late for, they were in a rush, it didn't meld well when I got there, it's only the second time I met with the client. You're telling a story. We surround ourselves by story. Anybody here ever read a book? Story. See a movie? Story. Watch television? Unless it's the news, and you're then half the time it's story. Come up with your stories. And when you do, rehearse them, rehearse them, rehearse them. You will rehearse, I hope, before the pitch contest if you're involved in this one or any other one. I hope you'll rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. But rehearse anyway. Because you never know, I've never met anybody in my 30+ years of business, it's close to 40 now, of business, that has ever met anybody in an elevator to do an elevator pitch. Never heard of it actually happening. But you never know. You may be, I don't know, sharing Uber with someone, on a bus with someone, walking in a park and have to be next to someone and just start chatting, in a bank line, I don't know where it might be, and just start chatting and find out that's the perfect opportunity for you. Be ready, don't stumble over yourself. This city had a mayor, way back when, who was amazing at speaking off the cuff, absolutely amazing. What most people didn't know is he practiced speaking off the cuff every morning before he left the house. Took the 3 top topics of the day, and he knew when he was sitting up on Federal Hill and someone approached him and brought up one of those topics, he could, Winston Churchill was amazing at this as well, go, let me think about that. Rehearse the answer at 4:30 that morning. Was set to go. Be set to go. Rehearse it, always be prepared. We'll talk a little bit about how to rehearse in a little while. There are specific ways, a million ways to do it, but some specific ways that I teach it. All right. What else can you include in your story? I'm gonna make sure I don't get out of camera break. What else can you include in your story?
Seems like you need a solution to that problem.
Yeah, you would, if I asked you how your day went, and you told me it got screwed up, but it worked out well, you're providing the solution. Okay, so you can do the solution, you can do any of this. Figure out what that story is. Not only rehearse it, but tell other people the story. See what they get. Don't give them the moral. Ask them what the moral is. Now, some people will say, when you tell the story, don't ever say it. The moral of the story is that was for Aesop's fables on Rocky and Bullwinkle, showing my age compared to this. No one else in the room here my age. So I don't know. Yes, thank you. Glad you raised your hand. I didn't realize that first. All right, so way back when, Rocky and Bullwinkle had Aesop's fables, and at the end it was the moral of the story is. Even if it was the tortoise and the hare, you were told the moral of the story. Now, I have people in my industry, public speaking coaches, who say you don't have to say the moral of the story. I disagree with that. Why should you say it? Why should you just come out and at the end blatantly say, and you don't have to say the moral of the story, you can say what this means to you, how this is going to help you. You can use any words you want, but I believe you should put the moral out there. Any idea why?
Insurance.
Insurance. What if you weren't listening? What if you were daydreaming? What if I said something that had you thinking about another point, and when I said something that was the crux of the moral, you didn't hear it? Just by repeating it, helps it all come together. What if you just got a different thought than what I was hoping for from my story? So tell us. Now back to your pitch. Tell them at the end what this all means. Okay, if you're going to take part in this one, it's 90 seconds, it's not a lot of time, it might only be the last 5 seconds. But tell them what it means. What it means emotionally, a lot of us leave that out. But let's face it, as human beings, we're more emotional than logical. Even linear thinkers who kind of fluff off the emotional side will end up there. 85% of the time, the scientists say. So even the emotional side, how is it going to help people? How is it going to solve their problems? How is it going to make their life better? And when you do solve problems, you generally make lives better. You could be making baseball bats. Oh, how does that make someone's life better? Someone got a job to make those bats. Someone then could fulfill what they wanted for their family and their lifetime. Your people who are making those bats, your employees in the front office, all those people have emotional results to a baseball bat being carved out of wood. Emotions matter. Talk about rehearsing. Talk about the story. Anybody have any questions on the storytelling? Pretty straightforward.
It's really just like the problem and then the solution that would be in a 90-second pitch. And not like, I mean, when would you bring the product in? The product is the solution.
Products, here's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah,
Here's the product we've developed
yes,
to solve that
Yeah.
problem. And then you can quickly go into, here's how it'll do it. Here's the revenue we're expecting, or here's the revenue we already have. You can include those things. But there's an old saying that facts tell and stories sell. We remember stories. People won't remember where I said we had the big green arrow and the 13% in the middle of that arrow. Won't necessarily remember the 13%. You may not remember that the arrow was green.
if we're just starting out,
Yeah.
how would we get to the point of knowing how to project revenue and what we're trying to expect?
When it comes, if you haven't done that.
Yeah.
If you don't know what your revenue will be, if you haven't gotten to that point. That's what things like this week are for. There and
These workshops?
these workshops.
Okay,
I don't know if there are any specifics on projecting. But that's what you would look for, to get people to help you project that, people
Okay.
with experience. Generally in the industry you're going to be in. They'll have greater ability to project, but there are people who are, like my wife does that for corporations. She
what's
does
that called?
projection.
What is that person called? Just a projection analysis or?
It can be an accountant, it can
Right.
be an accountant who is specifically familiar with doing projections. It could be an entrepreneur who just has skill. Beth, do you guys have anything for projecting? No,
We have judge.
You're like an analyst.
an analyst, yeah. You could have, I mean, this place is built for exactly what you're looking for. There's someone here who can point you in the right direction.
The Rhode Island Business?
Rhode Island Business, but even people at Rhode Island Hub is here.
Okay.
Right?
Pro forma stuff. Pro forma.
Okay.
Like a sheet. You do.
Okay.
Just doing that helps.
Pro forma.
Pro forma.
Okay.
And by the way, projections have changed all the time, because as my wife says,
Just a
we do it
projection,
scientifically and then take a wild ass guess.
Yeah, it's just. a
And then
projection.
change it to make the wild ass guess look better and better as
Right.
it gets closer.
Like on Shark Tank, like the projections are always like wild.
Yeah, well, like, how do you come to that projection? It's like, we thought that might be what it is, so you never know. All right, so when I said you wanna be prepared. And rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, come up with a time of the week. When you're going to rehearse, so maybe it's every Monday morning before you start your work week. At 9 AM. Maybe it's every Thursday night because that's your one consistent downtime. Come up with a time to rehearse what you would say to someone when they say, hey, what do you do? Or so, what are you working on now? Anything like that, and have that answer for them. And when it's, what do you do? It's generally not, I do this for a living. That's a title. Like if I say speaker coach, what does that mean to anybody? Nothing. My mother could never figure it out. She just thought I sold drugs. So that doesn't mean anything to anybody. Actually, what it means to people, if I say I'm a speaking coach, they automatically go to, oh, you help people get over the fear of public speaking. This much of my business is helping people get over the fear of public speaking. If they're clinical, I send them to a psychologist. And if they're not, we generally build that into becoming a better speaker, more effective speaker to begin with. But that's this much, that's what people go through. So when they ask you, what do you do? Be prepared to say, here's how I help you. Because that's what we do in life. We help people. We help people accomplish something. So be prepared for that. How are you going to rehearse? Here's my suggestion. The greatest thing ever invented for a speaker is this thing. Steve Jobs was a tremendous presenter. Some people say the best business presenter of our time. Arguably, I think he was great. How long did Steve Jobs, before he introduced this, or the iPad, or the iMac, the newer fashion of the iMac, how long did he rehearse? Any idea? And I'm not saying you should rehearse this long, which obviously makes it a decent amount of time. How long did he rehearse?
Like years?
No, not years. He said on average, 200 hours. 5 work weeks. What he would do once they got it down, how he was going to present, he worked with his people. They would go to the theater they have, not the market, but the one prior to it. And each day he had employees come in and he presented to those employees and they critiqued him. And he got better and better and better. And people will argue, well, that was Steve Jobs, and you're talking billions of dollars. And my thought was, well, that was Steve Jobs. And if he needed 200 hours, what do I need? 4 or 5? I don't rehearse for 400 or 500 hours when I get up on stage and speak, anywhere near it. And I'm not suggesting you do, but I do suggest you rehearse with this thing. Here's how. Prop it up, hit record on video. Do your 90-second, your 5-minute, your 60-second, whatever it might be. If you're going to do a presentation, it's going to be a 20-minute presentation, record all 20 minutes. Then play it back. 3 different ways. First way, face down. Just listen to it. Do I have fillers? Am I saying all the time? An or an or right, so. Once or twice, not a big deal. If you're doing it all the time because your adrenaline's flying faster than your mouth can go, make note of that. Deal with that. If you remind me in a few minutes, I'll tell you how to deal with the ums. Deal with that. If you're speaking too quickly, which most of us can't do, by the way, make note of that. Anybody can listen faster than we can speak. If you're speaking too slowly, make note of that. And then make a change. Edit what you can, revise what you can. When I say people can't speak, for the most part, too quickly, what do people say when they say this person speaks too quickly? What do they say? Because they're not. I have a friend named Steve. He's a business person out in Dartmouth. Very, very successful. And Steve gets amped up when he speaks to people about business, especially when he can help. And he takes one deep breath and speaks for 10 minutes. Non-stop. Let me tell you how we're going to do this. It's going to be fantastic. You're just the right person for it. It's going to be great. We're going to go and go and go. And he's like that. And everybody gets excited about Steve because he has this passion for helping you. But no one understands a word he says. Why?
Lacks focus.
That's what everybody says, by the way. Steve's awesome, but he speaks too fast.
Lacks focus.
No, his focus is dead on. What he says is right to the point accurate.
He doesn't enunciate.
No, he enunciates.
He doesn't pay attention on the people.
Someone just said it, but what it says.
He doesn't pay attention on the people he's speaking to.
No, he does. He actually stands there and serves them well. Someone said the word.
It doesn't pause.
Doesn't pause. He doesn't pause. He knows what he's talking about. You don't. You're hearing it for the first time. we have to pause. So one of the things you want to look for that's extremely important, probably the most important when you're listening to the audio is, am I pausing? Do I give people enough time to digest this, internalize it, understand how they're going to use it? Am I giving them that time? Now, if you're speaking for 90 seconds, you're gonna, I got a lot to jam in here. No, that means you have a lot more to cull out. Take out of it, so you can pause and let those judges, investors, whomever, understand what you're saying and how you're going to serve people and build a product or service that makes money or is sustainable. So are you pausing enough? Are you pausing too long to where it sounds like you lost your way? It's not a big deal if you lose your way. We all do. But if it's happening all the time and it just keeps sounding that way, make note of it, shorten up your pauses. Remember it like this. Who has houseplants? Anybody? What happens when you go away for a week or 10 days and come home?
They're thirsty,
They're thirsty. What's the soil like?
dry.
Dry and hard, right? So you go get the watering can or a bottle of water, and you come over and you go. The water just pours off the sides and goes to the bottom of the pot, or on the floor or wherever, right? We've all done it. So you stand there and you pour a little on, seeps in, pour a little more on, thinking, why do I have 72 plants that I have to do this with? A little more on, till the soil can start absorbing the water. And once it starts absorbing the water, you can pour a little more on because it's used to it. Same thing with us. Pour a little information on, pause, let us absorb it. Pour a little more information on, generally in the form of a story if you can. Not always, but if you can. Let us absorb it. Make sense to you? It's nice and easy. Let us do that. So Steve, like I said, is fantastic and I love him dearly and I respect him even more. But yeah. We've never worked together formally because one of us would kill the other. But I do try to get him to pause so he can be more helpful when he does serve people. All right, so the second time, you've done that, you made your notes, you go back to the beginning, you turn off the sound and watch it. What does my body look like? What does my face look like? Am I smiling? You don't have to have a big toothy grin, I certainly don't. Am I smiling? Do I look like I want to wipe out the world? What's going on here? Does my body look confident? What does it look like I want to get away? Like I said, confidence is key. You have that 3 seconds to establish it. We'll talk about how you do that in a minute. So you make all those notes. And because you've already listened to it, while you're watching it, you'll have a pretty good idea of what you're saying at that point. See if they coincide. Am I saying this is a great thing and it's going to be awesome? And I don't look like I have that enthusiasm and passion at that moment? Well, then I have to correct that. Because long before you'll believe my words, you'll believe my body. Instinctively, as human beings, for self-preservation, we react to bodies before we react to words or sound. That's what kept us alive. It still keeps us alive, is that instinct. So as much as we say, no, I'm beyond that, I'm an evolved animal, we're not. Your subconscious, your unconscious, not subconscious, your unconscious still rules the roost. There are so many things we do unconsciously that we have no clue about, and one of those is reading other people. No, I look at him, I can read him, I do it consciously, but even before we start thinking about it, our brain has told us other things. I've learned that as I've gotten to this age, that I get looked at from an audience differently than when I was younger. When I was very young and I was standing in front of 1,000 people, I got looked at, thinking back now, as he's young, does he know what he's talking about? And I was about 40. People were like, all right, see what this guy has to offer. Then I got a lot more gray hair on my head. A lot of people are like, oh man, he can help us. We read things, you can see other people. Which brings it to the point too, when you're talking to the investors or the judges, look them in the eye. Don't listen to people who say, look over their heads. Bull. Just like your mom told you, look people in the eye when you're talking to them. Otherwise, they think you're lying. They may not think you're lying, but unconsciously, they're not necessarily going to think they should have faith in what you're saying. So let's think about it. If I was speaking to you, you can tell I'm looking in your eyes, right? So we're gonna have a conversation, you and I, this distance. Yet the whole time I'm gonna do this. How do you feel?
Disconnected.
Disconnected, right? Why isn't he looking me in the eye? See if you're doing that on the video. It matters. Then play it back. This is the third way. Play it back the normal way, audio and video. Will you catch things? Maybe, maybe not. But you'll see yourself one more time and get used to that.
Isn't there also like a threshold though? I mean, if you were pitching just to one person and you only make eye contact with them, there's nobody else in the room. It's also like, there's like a level of like discomfort or like creepiness if you like are staring for people like too long, like, you know, there's just like a normal kind of reaction to that.
Yeah, the question is, if you're staring at people, like you start speaking to one person, you just look into their eyes, does it get kind of creepy? Yes, but no more so than any other conversation. Right, depending on what culture we were brought up in, we look people in the eye for a certain amount of time. And look away, divert our eyes, and then we look back. And in Eastern cultures, that time is much shorter. I work with a lot of people in the Eastern cultures who have to come over here and present. And that's one of the things we work on, because after about 2 seconds, they divert their eyes, and that's tough over here. If you and I were having a conversation and every 2 seconds I did this, that would be odd to you. If I stared in your eyes for the whole 5 minutes, that would, okay, to use your word, creepy. Which I get.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the funny thing is, I have a friend who's a hypnotist who helps people by hypnotizing, not like a club hypnotist. He helps people with hypnotism, through hypnotism. I never knew I stared at people when I spoke to them till I got married to my present wife. And she said, do you know you stare at people's eyes when you speak to them and you freak them out? And I said, no one's ever told me that. And then I was speaking to this hypnotist, Mark, and said, Gene said, I look at, he goes, Peter, you freak me out, I'm a hypnotist. So I had to learn to divert my eyes while I speak.
Like there's like a threshold when you should break eye contact after like sustained eye contact and then come back.
Yeah,
Give people like.
just divert your eyes,
Yeah.
look down, look up, look over, whatever. Go back. Research says in our culture, it's 4 seconds while you're speaking, 7 seconds while you're listening. On average, not saying 2, 3, 4, I can look away, but just that's what we do in this culture. And again, yes,
What about in a larger audience, 30, 40,000 people? Do you establish eye contact with individuals attempting to make that kind of bond, one at a time? Or do you try to work the crowd in some way that it feels like people are being acknowledged?
combination of the two, for the sake of the camera. The question is, if you have a large audience, can you look at individuals or groups? And it's both. For the people who are close to you, you would still look into their eyes. And it's not, I'm gonna look into your eyes, I'm gonna look into your eyes, boom, boom, boom. It's kind of bouncing around while you're speaking. And you look into their eyes, but as they get further away, it's just the groups. And you look at that group, and then you look at another group and another group. So it might be 10 by 10 in a large auditorium, whatever that might be. You just look in their directions. People want to know that you're making contact with them as a human being, as opposed to, like some people say. I had one person say to me, I was told in an old theater, you look up at the front of the balcony. You're gonna stand there like this when your audience is sitting down. I don't know where people come up with this. Like I said, your mom was right. I've written one book. I'm gonna write another book that everything I ever learned about public speaking was from my mom. Stand up straight, look people in the eye, put your hands out of your pockets, things like that. She was right. I paid a lot of money for training, and realized the person training me was just repeating what my mother told me since I was 3. All right, that's how you rehearse. Here's the other thing, have fun with it. Have absolute fun with it. Don't critique yourself so much that it becomes tough for you to do. Like, I can't believe I keep saying no. How am I going to get over that? Does anybody know how to get over saying no? Well, you know, my wife's extremely well educated, extremely successful. I hate her for it. We're very competitive. I love her dearly. I've been a business person. And she says, you know, all the time. You can't do that. Just can't do that. And she doesn't in front of her clients, but she does to me. Every third word is, you know. And we're very happily married. But I'll tell you this, and you'll wonder why. We'll be in the car and she'll say, you know, and I'll say before she can start the sentence, no, I don't, and that's why you're telling me. And they have a hand signal that she gives me. But that's me trying to break her of that habit. So how do you do that? First of all, you don't do that. Get sarcastic like that. You go out to PetSmart and you buy a dog clicker. You know where this is going?
Yeah.
And you give the dog clicker to someone you're going to rehearse in front of, not a significant other. They will have way too much fun and then have you taking out the garbage and everything else. But it's clicker. So don't do that. Give it to someone else and rehearse in front of them and have them click when you say, you know, right, so, and like. That's it. You do that for 2 or 3 days. 2 or 3 times over 2 or 3 days, go on. Okay. Yeah.
What is a dog clicker? Is this like a shock collar?
Now that's for extreme cases. The dog clicker is a $2 clicker for training a dog when they sit instead of giving them a treat every single time. They go click, click, and the dog goes, cool, I'm awesome. So it's, you just go to the training area, you'll see them standing there. Get the one that says PetSmart on it, then it's only $2. Without PetSmart, it's $5. It actually works in a very short amount of time. For any filler like that, it works extremely well. Simple as that. But rehearse, rehearse, and rehearse. And the one argument people, well, they have many arguments. One of the arguments people have against rehearsing is, if I rehearse, I sound rehearsed. Tell that to the people on Broadway who rehearse all the time, that they sound rehearsed. They rehearse enough so they don't sound rehearsed. And that's what you want to do, rehearse enough so you can be in the moment. If you rehearse part way, you'll sound rehearsed. Don't memorize what you're going to say. It should change most of the time. You don't have to use the exact words. Because if you're older like me, we tend to forget words every now and then, and your brain will just stop and go, I need that specific word. He said that word every time. He wants that specific word. I need to come up with that specific word, and that's when we go blank. If your adrenaline's flowing, no matter what age you are, same thing happens. So you don't have specific words. Sometimes you do, because here's our revenue, here's our net profit. Those have to be close. But round them off. They don't have to be 223,000, 220,000, 200,000, unless it has to be exact, but round numbers are fine. Rehearse that way, and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. Pro athletes, best in the world at what they do. I don't care if it's baseball, football, basketball, best in the world at what they do. Take baseball. Best 700 people in the world at what they do. What do they do every day they're not playing? Practice. We call it rehearsal, they call it practice. Military. Most prepared, I hope, military in the world. What do? Drill, 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 even with live rounds. Here, my dad was a firefighter right over the hill over here at Brook Street. They drilled all the time. Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. let's get to confidence. How are you going to look confident? How are you going to make that less than 3-second impression upon the judges or investors or others who are just going to listen to you? Stand like this. Number one, period, amen. Stand like this, feet shoulder width apart. Stand up straight, hands out of your pockets. Not difficult. Again, everything Mom told you. This shows confidence. This does not. People in the camera might not see this, just crossing your legs over. This is making yourself small, less of a target. And people trying to be less of a target are not showing confidence. Plus, what do you do if you stand like this? There's two things that are going to happen. What are they? One is you're going to start to wobble. And you're going to have to catch yourself. And people will say, but I'm comfortable like this. You're mentally comfortable because, do you know what we do when we stand like this? What we're doing unconsciously? Protecting ourselves. We're making ourselves a lesser target, but physically we're protecting ourselves. Two areas you protect are your throat and your genitals. And that's what we're doing when we stand this way. So people say I'm more comfortable. Of course you are, because you're protecting yourself. Of course you're comfortable. But we know you're physically not comfortable because what do you do 30 seconds later? Because you're not a crane or a flamingo. You've got to switch legs. So you wobble or you switch legs. And this just talking about protecting yourself like that. Anybody ever go to an awards banquet and they call up 5 people who are going to get awards for that quarter or that year or whatever? And the 5 people up in the front of the room, they're all like this. Every single one of them's like this. The protect, one person goes up to the lectern to get their award. Like, what do you think's going to happen to you? Relax. Look at your hands, hang down. Okay, so this displays confidence. Very easy. If you find yourself suddenly standing with your feet together, that's okay. Separate them again. But to end up like this, one way to do it. Like I said, keep your hands out of your pockets. Why do we keep our hands out of our pockets?
Less threatening, you can see their hands, so.
You can see their hands. When we can't see someone's hands, again, unconsciously, something's wrong. You all realize we shake hands to show that we don't have a weapon? Way back when. Maybe not, but generally way back when. That's saluting, the same thing, showing your superior there was nothing in your hand. Generally your right hand, because for the most part, even back then, eons ago, we were mainly right-handed. So that's what it was for. Now that tradition is held over to shaking hands. But when we can't see hands, unconsciously, we're not as comfortable. People will actually come out and say, people who are not showing their hands may be lying. I don't know if that's true or not. Don't care if it's true or not. But we are uncomfortable when people have their hands in their pockets because we can't see them. Now, no one generally sits there and says, wow, I'm uncomfortable because I can't see Peter's hands. But you might leave here saying, you know, the guy was okay. I just wasn't comfortable with him. I have no idea why. Because unconsciously, you didn't feel comfortable. Take your hands out of your pockets. Don't put them behind your back. Anybody here serve in the military? Why do they put in the military? Why do they put their hands behind their back when they're at ease? The legs are spread a little further. I can't attack my superior. I can't attack someone from my legs spread a little further. I have to bring them closer before I can move. And if my hands are behind my back, I have to bring them out in front before I can attack. So that's what at ease or at rest is. And that's where it originated in. So keep your hands out and use them. Use your hands when you talk. I know I don't look Italian. I know my last name is George. My actual last name is Giosa. My family was as Italian as I can get. I'm the only one who looks this way. I have no idea why. But everybody else has olive green skin, and then there's me. But I speak with my hands and I speak with my hands a lot. Talk with your hands. Long before the written or spoken language was created, we spoke with our hands. That has never left us through evolution. When we don't, think if you were watching a sitcom and no one moved their hands and they all spoke, walking around the apartment, speaking like this, and no one moved their hands when they spoke. No, they have to use their hands. We wouldn't connect with them otherwise. Use your hands, and the secret of using your hands is show them your palms. Not like Jesus the defender looking over Rio de Janeiro. Your hands way out like this. Just occasionally show people your palms. We connect with palms back to, we're comfortable with palms. I show there's nothing in my hand, and at an unconscious level, we relax and connect. So just show people your palms. You'll notice that while I'm speaking, every once in a while, I'll just roll my thumb. It's just a roll of like 45 degrees or whatever. I don't even know when I'm doing it anymore. But you just roll your thumb a little, or open them up a little, or drop them down here. Clergy, many different denominations know to open their palms. I was raised Catholic. Up, down, kneel, sit, up, down, sit, kneel. And the priests who were very good at it would say, please be seated. With their palm, they wouldn't do this. Actual studies, and most recently has been replicated by Stanford, I think was the last one I saw, but this has been going on since the 70s. When Alan and Barbara Pease, who are the body language people, husband and wife psychiatrists or psychologists, they did a study, and Oxford replicated at Harvard, and I think later Stanford. They had 100 people in a room like this, but they had 200 seats, and they said, for this seminar, it was an actual seminar, please sit, everybody sit over here. And they did. At one point in the presentation, the facilitator said, could everybody please move from these seats over to these seats? 82 people, 82% got up almost immediately, went over, and the others kind of lagged behind. The next day they had the same seminar, same facilitator, same setup, different people. And at the same point, with the same amount of enthusiasm, involvement, and everything else, the facilitator said, could I have everybody in these seats, could I have all of you move from here over to here with her palms down? Trying to get the numbers right here, 54%, give or take a percentage. Got up and moved immediately, and the rest, almost half the group, kind of lagged behind. Third day, did the whole thing over again, new group of people, and she used her fingers. Could everybody please move from here over to here? And 18% got up immediately, and the others lagged behind. 28 got up immediately. And that's been, every time it's replicated, it's within a few points. Each group is within a few points. So that goes to show the more we use our palms, the more we connect, the more we have our palms down, the less we connect, and the more we point, even less. Which often makes me wonder why on a plane, you'll see in Eastern cultures, quite often they're saying we have exits here, here, and here. And they show us their palms. In a lot of American airlines, they know they don't want to point, so they use two fingers. We have exits here, here, and here. I don't know what the two fingers, how it makes it any better, but all the way back to use your palms. Show people your palms there. So if your hands are down here, by the way, or you can speak with your hands down here for a little while. That's kind of cool. Because you have nothing up in front of you protecting you. Not even this little bit of flesh here protecting you. You just get your hands down, but you can still show people your palms just by rolling your thumb a little bit while you're doing that. What questions on body language? All right, let's bring that to the face. Like I said early on, smile. I don't have a big toothy grin. My face is not made that way. My wife does. It's awesome. She gets up to speak. She has a great smile. I can't do that. Don't want to do that. But just have a pleasant look on your face. You're passionate about it, show the passion. Look at the camera, make sure you have that passion coming through. Like I said, look people in the eye. Let's see what else. Oh, breathing. Excuse me. Breathing has a lot to do with looking confident. When our adrenaline kicks in, we breathe faster. Makes sense? We get into fight, flight, or fright mode. What happens when you get into fight, flight, or fright mode? Anybody get sweaty palms? Breathing goes up. Maybe your whole body sweats. Blood pressure goes up. If you're like me, as they pointed out in high school, when I would get embarrassed because I had to talk, you could see blood come right up through my throat, my neck, into my cheeks. That might happen. The blood pressure changes. All this happens to our body because it is preparing us to either run or fight. And if we have to do that, then our bodies must be prepared for it. The fright pop comes in when they say he was scared to death or scared stiff. That does happen. Where you know you should run away from the bull. The pink runner or wherever they have the running of bulls. You know you should run away from the bull, if you stand there and get hit by the bull. Sometimes we do that. But it's prepping us to either, for the most part, run or fight. Know that you're going to breathe harder, faster. What you want to do, anybody here take yoga? Meditation? Giving birth to a child? Then you know cleansing breaths. Or as most people would call it otherwise, diaphragmatic breathing. Breathe in, you can practice this. Lie down on the floor, lie down on the bed. You can do it anywhere, but if you lay down, it's a little more dramatically seen. Lie down, put your hand on your stomach and breathe in. And when you think you've breathed in enough, breathe in again, deeper. And your hand should raise an inch or two. That's when you know you're truly filling your lungs with air. You get someone like Adele or Beyonce, you're singing along in the car with them, and they just keep going on and you're out of air. They're practicing diaphragmatic breathing. They're filling their lungs with air. We're filling ours, not filling. We're using about a third of our lungs. So when you're up presenting, realize you're going to present with less air and make sure you do diaphragmatic breathing. How can you get used to that? Every time you stop at a red light, Mark the hypnotist like this. Every time you stop at a red light, do diaphragmatic breathing. Practice it. 3 or 4. In as far as you can go. Don't hold it. It's not a doctor's office. Don't hold it. Right back up. Just stop practicing. 3 or 4. You do 5 or 6, you'll pass out, and then you hold up traffic at the red light. Practice that. That'll help you at all times. You get nervous about anything. Do diaphragmatic breathing. It brings it down. Why do we forget what we're going to say? We're old.
You're not breathing.
Not breathing,
Nervous, not pausing.
not pausing, nervousness,
You're too focused on finding the right.
too focused. Yeah, all of those are right. Physiological reason is back to the adrenaline. When you have to fight or run, fight or flight, what do you need memory for? Muscle memory for surviving. Memory, not so much. So what happens is, you ever somewhere maybe like a networking event, and they give everybody 60 seconds to talk, and you're all seated around this big conference table. Person next to you is talking, you go, I know exactly what I'm going to say. Their butt hits the seat, you stand up and you go, I have no idea what I was going to say. Because your adrenaline kicked in and your memory went down. Then your butt hits the seat and you go, I remember what I was going to say. How did I forget? That's what's supposed to happen to your body. So by rehearsing and doing everything else, it's not so much that you, that's why I say don't try to memorize the words, memorize the concepts. So you can get by that. So you don't have to look for that right word. And you can change on the fly if you have to. That's what happens to us. That's why everybody, I in my head always felt like a roulette. wheel was going around and the ball would never fall. When my adrenaline would kick in like that. So the better prepared you can become, the more you can deal with that. But that's why that happens, but I brought that up because diaphragmatic breathing helps combat that. It sends more air to your brain, more oxygen to your brain, more oxygen to your brain, the clearer you can think, the better off you are. All right, so you're up presenting, you've got 90 seconds. What else can you do? You're gonna look confident. This way you establish a connection of confidence before you ever open your mouth. By the way, once you get up there, I know you only have 90 seconds, take 3 to not say a word. Stand there and make eye contact. They will then be on your side. It's yours to lose at that point. What else might you do? My thought, when you're pitching, if you have an object, a product, and it's feasible, bring it up there with you. Back to Shark Tank, you'll see people have products and they'll say, we have samples for the, you don't have to have samples for the judges, but you might have the product with you so they get an idea. Again, when you say it's a whatever, this widget, and this widget looks like this, in your head, you know exactly what it looks like. Someone not in your industry, no clue.
Is there a risk of distraction with that?
Excuse me?
Is there a risk of distraction from the audience? If they're focused on the thing that you're holding rather than the things you're saying?
While you're talking,
Yeah.
it's a great time to pause. As you see here, we developed this to be handheld instead of the 1 foot cubed. And then you can put it down. Anything like that. If you need notes, bring them with you. But here's how you use notes. It is not page after page. I have pages here to remind me because there's specific things I want to talk to and it's training and that's fine. But when you're up speaking in front of people, notes are okay with 1 note card. You ever see anybody speak and they have 8 note cards? Hopefully they don't drop them because they forgot to number them. They have 8 note cards and they're speaking. And they know exactly what they're going to say, and they're going at it. They're speaking and speaking and speaking. And then they're like, because they weren't moving the note cards as they were going. So now where they are in their presentations, buried in that stack of note cards. And when your adrenaline's flying, now it is. You really don't pay attention to what you're reading, which means you pass what you wanted to find. Anyway, 1 note card, 3 topics. You're only speaking for 90 seconds, but even if it was a 10-minute pitch, the 3 topics you're going to speak on, that's it. I had a gentleman who's president of a company. They work with chemicals. They work with disposing chemicals that are left behind after, trying to put this in a particular way, I make it more of it than it is. After being treated for cancer, so chemo and other things. Disposing it correctly. They also do research on how much of that's in your body and you transfer. Like if you kissed your grandmother and she's being treated with chemo, how much of that's getting transferred to you? They do things like that. So he speaks all over the world, this gentleman. But he was going to do a TED Talk. And he hired me to help him with the TED Talk. And he wanted to take a 60-minute presentation that he knows back and forth. And break it down to the maximum 18 minutes you can have in a TED Talk. And he had trouble with that because he always wanted to bring in the minutia, but you can't, you don't have time for that. So he said, but now every time I try the 18 minutes, I get lost. My head's always trying to go elsewhere. We worked on it and he did absolutely fine in rehearsals. And the night before the TED Talk, he and I got together and he said, Peter, I'm so nervous that I'm going to screw up. I don't even want to show up to it. He said, just show up. We'll take care of it. I brought with me a fine point sharp. He said, Bob, give me your hand. What's the first point you're going to make? 3 words. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. I took his hand and wrote the 3 words on his middle finger. side of his middle finger. Second point, 3 words on his ring finger. Third point, 3 words on his little finger. When you forget what you want to say to keep you on track, when you forget the first point, move your first finger. You forget the second one, move your second finger. If you forget the third one, move your third finger. Whole point here is there's different ways to have notes. Guess how many times he looked at his hand?
0.
0. Absolutely nailed the talk. When we talked later, he said, if you had not written those on my hand, I believe I would have screwed up big time. I don't think he would have, but he needed the crutch. When I speak on stage, and I've done this for 36 years now, I did at the beginning, and I still do to this day. I generally wear a jacket. And in my breast pocket is 1 note card with 3 points on it. Have I ever looked at them? I believe once. I didn't. I believe once in Williamsburg, Pennsylvania. Virginia. It's amazing how that sticks in your head. That was probably 25 years ago. But it's a crutch. And as long as I know that's there, I'm fine. If you take that out, I'd probably screw up because it'd be in my head. Find what works for you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you speak to whether there's any difference in this code knowledge that you've given us for pure Zoom visible?
Your Zoom?
Yeah, obviously you got like this much.
Yeah, butt shot.
So do you recommend like standing up and putting in the Zoom?
Stand up on Zoom. When we sit down, if you have to sit down when you're presenting anyway, there's a key to sitting down. Then we'll get into the standing up, which hopefully you can do with Zoom as well. Sit on the front of the seat. Seats do, even seats like this, do what they're meant to do. We put our butts all the way back, our shoulders round, and we don't look quite the same as if we sit up now with your feet flat on the floor. Your back now is up straight, your shoulders are back. It's very close to as if you were standing, and your butt becomes the fuller. You can move because your feet are rudders now. You can move almost like you could if you were standing. So if you sit up towards the front of the seat, you have a lot more control of your body. It looks a lot better, almost like you're standing. But if you can on Zoom, stand. It's more natural. It's more confident looking. It's a bust shot generally. Don't get so far back that it's from your waist up. It's usually chest up. And look natural. Be lit. We're much better at this than when Zoom first started being used during COVID. And everybody looked like they were in a witness protection program with light behind them. So we're better with that, but make sure you lit well. Here's the deal with Zoom. You have to make eye contact. And if I'm looking at you on Zoom and you're on my screen, I'm not making eye contact. Because eye contact is through that camera. You on the other end is seeing what's happening through that camera. So if I'm looking down at your face, then instead of seeing me like this, you're seeing me like this. So you have to get used to presenting into that little dot. Practice that. If you have to present on Zoom, practice that because that is not easy. We resort back to the face. Yes.
For that reason, it'd be great if you can record it on your laptop.
Yeah, put it on your laptop while you practice. That's a great idea. Or do you mean record it and present?
No, both like being into it, know what it looks like.
Yeah, yeah, you'll know exactly what it looks like. A company just came out with a little camera that you can put over the person's face. So now when you look at their face, you're looking into the camera. That's great. What if the person you're speaking to is in the bottom left, who's 26, and you're like this? And the person in the middle is looking at you like this. So it's fine for the person you're speaking to, but it's not fine for everybody else. So there's a little left to be desired. Great idea. Apple is trying to figure out through AI how I can look at the monitor on my laptop or my desktop or anything. And it change my eyes so it looks like I'm looking through the camera. I don't care how much they can affect that, to me, that's gonna look freaky. Just learn. To look at it.
Would it be better to use a phone as a Zoom camera with the image right in front of you?
You can do that. You can do that. The problem becomes when you get more than one person on the other end. And you're trying to look at it. But just relax, learn to look at that little dot. And again, everything else falls into place. Stand up, look confident. Pause. Tell stories. Those things help. Anecdotes help. Stories better. Anecdotes are fine. Tell those, but rehearse. Throughout. You might stop pitching someday. If you're an entrepreneur, you won't, but you'll be pitching somewhere quite often. But still rehearse. Be ready to go out into the world when someone says, what do you do? Answer that with how you help someone. Solution first. Solution first. You know how this happens? Yeah, that's a pain in the butt. I solved that. Really? How do you do that? So we do it this way. Does that work out? Yeah, it's great. Profitable? Oh yeah. Whatever, it stops the conversation. And that's what you want. Even if you're the only person speaking, it's conversation style. Facts tell, stories tell. Question? Yes.
How do you get back attention in a group if you notice that someone lost attention?
If people lost attention, you can, if one person lost attention, that happens. There's no way around that. Not everybody's gonna connect. If you lost the room, you have to just stop in your head and think about why did I lose them? Where did I lose them? Or is this the time to stop? But whatever it might be. Simple as that. You get all these clues, people go, well, how do you figure that out? You look at people. This is another reason you look people in the eye. You're nodding your head. I've not lost your attention. If I look at someone and I nod my head and they nod their head back, I've got. If the whole group or half the group looks like the dog and doesn't understand what the owner's saying, you might want to backtrack and figure out where you said something they didn't understand. Just look at it. No different. I'll end with this. I'll definitely end with this. People come to me and say, I'm great with 3 people. But I now have, in my new position, have to speak to 50 people, and I'm not good over 50 people. I got to learn how to speak to 50 people. My first answer to them is, you can't. It is impossible to speak to 50 people. It's impossible to speak to 3 people. You can only speak to one person effectively at a time, no matter how many people are in the room. It'll be replicated for each person in the room. But we try and say, how am I going to speak to all these people? Then, so when we hear presentation, we make presentation different from conversation. If we just go out and have a conversation, no matter how many people are sitting there, we have a conversation with one person. I don't mean stare at that one person the whole time. You just use words like it's one person, mentality like it's one person, then it becomes easier. So that's just have a conversation with people. Can't speak to more than one person. For instance, if I said, who here is from Warwick? I'm trying to speak to a group, as opposed to raise your hand if you're from Warwick. It's the same answer, but now I'm speaking to an individual. Raise your hand if you are from Warwick. You heard the same thing. You heard the same thing. You heard the same thing. I'm speaking to one person. Just a switch of mentality. Keep it a conversation. You can speak to 1,000, 2,000, 10,000. Or as a client of mine went from speaking to no more than 100 to 18,000. Speak to one person. I think I'm good.
All right, so let's thank Peter. So, just a few things. So for those of you who came in later, I'm Beth Carter. I'm the executive director of the Rhode Island Business Competition. I have to tell you, and it's noted here in the 3rd paragraph, Peter's book, The Captivating Public Speaker, is an excellent, excellent book. I own it. You can get it on Amazon. So I'll give a little sales pitch for Peter. I hope we'll see you at our pitch contest, which is on November 16th. It's here at 5:30. please grab a brochure on your way out. We have all our handles, as I mentioned. And if you have any questions at any time, you can always email us at info@ri-business.com. So thank you so much for coming today. This has been great. And thank you again, Peter. You're always awesome. So thank you.
Thank you. My wife says I don't promote myself enough, the book, and thank you for bringing up the book. I was gonna bring him here today. I don't have any with me because I was at another event where they all went. That book has won 6 awards. It was released just over a year ago. It's won 6 awards, mostly due to my editor. And was runner-up at the prestigious British Book Awards, runner-up for International Business Book of the Year. So I guess that's supposed to give it credibility. Other than that, it was written by me. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, all right. All right, so I'm super fortunate to present to the. Next week.
Wow.
Yeah, that's cool. So we're happy to do the program. Program is not focused on grant.
Yeah, so
Despite I didn't.
go, you can sign up for our website for.
You know, my talk is. I'm still. I have to sit there. And they, they're. It's been a mission to be the program. You do this, I do this, I have to do this. You know, she wants a pretty good story.